I'm back from 5 weeks in Asia. But did you know that the camera I used the most was the one that was least capable? Find out more after this. If you've been following me on social media or on YouTube, you will know that I had planned to do this Asia trip using just an iPhone 15 Pro. I did a video a few months ago about how I shot Edinburgh on my old iPhone 11, link in the description, and I just felt that the heat and humidity of Asia would be ideally suited to a smaller, more compact system. The Asia trip was primarily about video stock. I would be shooting photography, but it wasn't my primary target. Some of the photography I was going to shoot would go to stock, but nearly all of the video was being shot for stock agencies. So the plan was to take the iPhone 15. With this setup, I've got a newer rig and I can put an SSD in here via a USB-C, and it shoots fantastic. It can shoot 10-bit ProRes log, really high quality video, 3 different lenses, a wide angle, a standard and a moderate telephoto, which I think is about 85mm, something like that. And I thought this would be the ideal system to take with me into the heat and humidity of Asia. If you have been following me, you'll know that recently I swapped my entire Fuji system for this camera, which is the Sony Alpha 7 R5. It was a bold move. It was one that was possibly quite a long time in the making. I don't tend to move camera systems every year. It's usually every 10 to 15 years. But having done it, I felt that this camera had to come to Asia with me. And so it did. I took the 24-105 and I bought myself a rather brilliant little 85mm f1.8. It's not the G Master, the £2,000 one. It cost me £350, $500 roughly off of Amazon, and it was amazing. However, neither the iPhone 15 Pro or this Sony ended up being my most used camera. Let's look at the cameras that I did use, and in the grand tradition of reverse orders, I will go from my least used camera to my most used camera. Bear in mind, I'm talking about video stock and not photography. Photography is a different matter. I used all 3 cameras, but I will explain as I go through which cameras I used for photography and why. So, as I mentioned, the original first choice was the iPhone 15 Pro. 10-bit video, ProRes, log, fantastic. It does everything that the Sony could potentially do in a much, much lighter weight. On the first day, I went out to the beautiful Lupini Park in Bangkok, and there was a problem. The screen on the iPhone is just not bright enough, particularly if you're shooting log. I was shooting with the Blackmagic app in log. I couldn't see a thing. It was really, really difficult to judge shots, to compose shots. Even with the screen brightness all the way up, I could not see what I was doing. I tried adding the LUT preview to boost the colors of the image on the screen, but it really didn't do very much at all. There was another problem as well, which honestly is one that I should have thought about ahead of the trip, but didn't. And that is quite simple. If you want to shoot down low, you can't see the screen. If you want to shoot up high, you can't see the screen. It's a major issue. You're going to be confined to either shooting everything at eye level, which is staid and boring, or clambering around in the dirt and trying to get low-level images and getting yourself dirty and sweaty and hot at the same time. It was a no-go. So the iPhone took a bit of a back burner. So what about the Sony a7 R5? On paper, it's by far the most capable camera. The video capabilities of 8K, 422, 10-bit, S-Log free. It's a very, very powerful, capable camera combined with image stabilized lenses. It's a really, really good camera. But to get really good quality video stock, you need very stable footage. And that means either a tripod that I'm using here or a gimbal. Now I took both. I had a video tripod head, my Manfrotto CO55 lightweight carbon fiber tripod, and I had a DJI Mini RS3 gimbal. And they worked really, really well. However, again, there was an issue, and that was the weight. The Sony is not much heavier than my old Fuji X-H2, but in the heat and humidity of Southeast Asia, of Bangkok, of Ho Chi Minh City, of Singapore, it absolutely sapped my energy. That wasn't helped by the fact that I think I probably caught COVID on the way to Ho Chi Minh City, and it absolutely wiped me out. So lifting this gimbal with the camera and the lens was a no-no. However, photographically, shooting handheld with this camera, I absolutely loved it. I did a video whilst I was in Southeast Asia questioning whether the Sony Alpha R5 was a low light monster. Now clearly it's not the best low light monster in the world, but its low light photographic capabilities really astounded me. And I'll show you some of these images on screen that were shot on auto ISO, wide open on the f1.8 85mm lens, and I just loved that combination. As a photographic tool, it was my go-to camera. Second was the iPhone 15, which had amazing capabilities as well. But the Sony was my go-to camera for photography, but not for video. So what was the winner? What was the outstanding camera that I used the most on my video shoots in Southeast Asia? Well, it was this. It's the DJI Pocket 3. It's a tiny little camera. It's got a 1-inch sensor. It's a gimbal stabilized. It's got a decent little screen on the back, and it was absolutely fantastic. I could shoot 10-bit D-Log-M footage, great footage to grade. It's pretty decent in low light. It has a low light mode, although I tended to shoot in the standard video mode with plus 1.7 EV in cityscape shots and stuff like that, as that was a much better quality image as far as I'm concerned. Again, I did a video down in Singapore where I compared the low light mode on this, the regular video mode on this, plus the low light video on the Sony Alpha 7 R5 to see how well they captured the fantastic Singapore skyline. And the standard mode on this was much better, in my opinion, than the low light mode. Overall, it's an absolutely brilliant little camera. It's so capable. For stock video, the image quality is more than enough. It's very editable. You've got lots of definition. You've got lots of detail in the files. You can pull back the highlights. I purchased some ND filters. There's one on it at the moment. I had an ND8, an ND32, and an ND64. But in the bright light of Bangkok, Singapore, and Ho Chi Minh City, I found that I was using the 32 and 64 nearly all the time. I also had a polarizing filter, but I didn't use that at all. You have the standard problems with polarizing filters and ultra-wide-angled lenses. And the ultra-wide-angled lens is probably its weakest point. You're stuck with a 20mm lens on this camera. You also can't change aperture, hence the need for the ND filters. But the 20mm, you're limited to it. Obviously, you can crop in a little bit, but not too much. It's only 4K. It doesn't do 8K or anything like that. So you are limited. But for shooting in discrete areas, for shooting in congested areas, for shooting in temples, for shooting from river boats, it was fantastic. I combined it with a Gorilla Pod 3K, and I could set it up on congested skywalks and do interesting time-lapse of traffic without heavy tripods blocking off the route or security guards coming down on me. It was just amazing. I shot, I think, between 70 and 80% of the stock video footage on this trip using this little camera. So in summary, the DJI Pocket 3, was my go-to camera. Technically, it's the least capable. It doesn't have any zoom capability. The image quality is lower than the iPhone 15 and the Sony Alpha 7 R5, and yet its size, its portability meant I could take it literally everywhere. If I went for a coffee, I could take it along with me, shoot something interesting that cropped up en route. It was a brilliant little camera. And DJI, if you're listening to this tiny little channel, which I'm sure you're probably not, if the DJI Pocket 4 has an optical zoom on it, count me in. I'm having one. It's a brilliant little camera. So I hope you've enjoyed my first video since coming back from Asia. I've got lots of footage out there, lots of ideas, and I think there will also be some future videos based on the trip. I'll be doing a city guide, photographer's guide to Bangkok, a photographer's guide to Singapore. Sadly, not one for Ho Chi Minh City because pretty much all my time there was wiped out by COVID or suspected COVID. But there will be future videos using footage that I captured on this trip that I hope you will find interesting. If you found this video interesting, please drop me a subscription, give me a like. If you've got any questions, I'm quite happy to answer them in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next one.